coming up. The plan today is to leave Whale Firth out here, go through the Sound of Yell and sail down to Lerwick. And suddenly I see a massive black fin emerging from the water.
This is quite wild.
We take the bus to go to Shetland's northernmost island called Unst, which apparently represents the largest concentration of Viking ruins in the world. We learned that there is something very special to see on the island. Jarlshof is a historic site where human settlements spanning 4,000 years can be seen in one place. The job of a lighthouse keeper was not for everybody. They had to cope with isolation, loneliness, and exposure to the terrifying power of nature.
General situation. Low to the southwest of Ireland will move northeast, reaching Scotland by tomorrow, then slowly move into the northern North Sea. Showers and some thundering will affect the coastal waters throughout, with strong winds in the south at times. Cape Wrath to Rattray head including Orkney, 24-hour forecast. Variable forward or less, becoming cyclonic 3 to 5, smooth or slight. Showers perhaps thundering, good, occasionally poor. Outlook for the following 24 hours. Cyclonic 3 to 5, becoming a west or northwest later.
How is the steering going, Catherine?
Good morning. It is Monday, the 10th of July, 11 o'clock in the morning, and we're here in Whale Firth on the Shetland Islands. And the plan today is to leave Whale Firth out here, go through the Sound of Yell, which is pretty complex, I'll come to that, and then sail down to Lerwick. It's 41 nautical miles, so it's going to take a couple of hours, and it's going to lead us out here off the Whale Firth, which is fine. We timed our departure so that we will have the tide with us through Yell Sound. This is quite well known for difficult and strong tides here, so with overfalls and whirlpools and ripples and so on. So we should be okay with the tide with us. Firstly, that helps us pushing us through, and secondly, in 2 days it's neaps, so the streams are not too strong today, which should be fine. It leads us here through all these small islets around the corner here, down at Walsey, and then into Lerwick. We timed our departure so that we will be here at the entrance of Yell Sound when the tide turns. That's at 12 o'clock, and then we have the tide pushing us through all here all the way. We have just left Whale Firth and we're now entering Yell Sound. I have called Sumburgh VTS to inform them of our plans. Sumburgh is a big harbour. There's an oil terminal here. There's big tankers coming in and out, so they want to know what's going on. We're fine to go. There's nothing big going on at the moment, but we have to keep a good lookout. The tide is just about to turn. It's 12 o'clock. So we still have about half a knot against us. That will soon change, and I think we're going to have 1 to 2 knots with us, so that's going to push us with hopefully 7.5 to 8 knots towards our destination. It would be a nice sailing wind out here, about 12 to 15 knots. Nice for sailing, but unfortunately one of the 3 winds, too strong, too weak, or from the wrong direction. It's the third one today. We have it directly on the nose. We need to go through Yell Sound today because from tomorrow onwards for the next couple of days it's going to be rainy and a bit windy, so we'd like to be in a good harbour where there's something to do, and that's why we're going into Lerwick today. And suddenly I see a massive black fin emerging from the water, just a couple of 100 meters away, and then another one. Orcas! But unfortunately, in my excitement, I missed them on camera. This is amazing. 2 orcas slowly and majestically cruising up the Yell Sound. We read and heard a lot about orcas, depending on which side you are, interacting or attacking yachts in the Strait of Gibraltar. Up here, there is no such behavior, and I was awestruck by this sight. And it will be not the last time that we spot these apex predators in Shetland.
It's not so good visible on the camera, but this looks quite wild. There's quite some turbulence here, caused by the tide. Look at that. Probably going to be a bit of shaking. This is quite wild. Nice, a flat calm day. Imagine that with a little bit more wind and that spring tide. Ooh, that's not going to be a nice place to be. Autopilot has some difficulties to keep in course. There is the fishing port of Simbister, the island of Walsey.
Lerwick, port control, Lerwick, port control. This is sailing vessel Polaris Helvetica, Polaris Helvetica, Polaris Helvetica, over.
Polaris Helvetica, port control. Yes, good evening, over.
Port control, this is Polaris. Good evening, sir. We are approaching Rover Head and have the intention to enter the harbour to the small boat harbour. Is there any traffic or anything to observe, over?
Polaris Helvetica, port control. Yes, that's fine. Just a few small boat sailing vessels in the harbour just now. The cruise ship, the Viking Venus, is about to leave berth shortly. 5:30. And yes, if you go into the south side of Victoria Pier, we need to keep the north side clear. Over.
That's understood. We will try the south side of the Victoria Pier, and otherwise we'll raft up on the north side, over.
Polaris Helvetica, port control. Yes, that's fine. There are a number of yachts in, so you'll just have to tie up alongside on the outside of one of the yachts that's in already, over.
That's understood. Question. What is the depth on the south pier? We draw 2 meters. Is there enough for us, over?
Polaris Helvetica, port control. Yes, as long as you don't go right into the corner, you stay in the middle of Victoria Pier South, you should be fine, over.
The following day, we take the bus to go to Shetland's northernmost island called Unst. The ferry takes us to the island of Yell, smaller bus waits for us. At the top of Yell, we take another ferry to Unst, jump on an even smaller public bus. It takes us about 3 hours to get there, and as we arrive, the Unst Heritage Centre just opens its door, which is a great opportunity to gain an overview of the island. We learn more about the iconic Shetland ponies. One area where they can be abundantly seen is here on Unst. Up here, they were used as workhorses, cultivating the land and transporting peat from hills, an essential help for the local crofters, which we will talk later about. Massive exports of the breed, for example for English coal mines, led to a near depletion of quality breeding stock, and only a dedicated breeding program by the Shetland Pony Studbook Society that started in 1890 ensured the preservation of a high quality breeding gene pool and the survival of this archetypal breed. Crofting is a form of land tenure and small-scale food production particular to the Scottish Highlands and the islands of Scotland. Crofting communities were a product of the Highland clearances, a dark chapter of Scottish history with huge consequences even into present times. During the Highland clearances, landlords evicted their tenant farmers who had lived on their land under a complex ownership structure to make space for grazing sheep. The farming families were forced to move to lower quality lands on the islands and near the coast, or even to emigrate. Those who stayed as crofting tenants were given small patches of land, intentionally too small to feed a family, to force the crofters to work in various industries such as fishing or kelp. A contemporary estimate was that a crofter needed to work around 200 days away from his home to avoid poverty. Subsequent laws in 1886 granted the crofters the tenure of their land, encouraging them to improve the land under their control, as it ensured that the control could be transferred within families and passed to future generations. Today, a major problem of many areas is the fact that there is no investment and infrastructure to keep the population. Often, the land is owned by absent landlords who prefer to siphon their crofting tenancy revenues away instead of investing into the future of the area. Fortunately, in recent years, there have been some local crofting community initiatives all around Scotland intending to buy out the landlords in order to regain ownership and control. There is also a section about lighthouses and their keepers. We had already figured out that this was not a job for everyone. But more about this later in this episode. Our next stop is the Unst Boathaven Museum, which boasts a unique collection of traditional small fishing and sailing boats. They all have something in common. They are built in the Scandinavian style of construction. Once more, a hint about the strong roots these islands and their people have to the northern European mainland. But now let's go out and take a big leap back in history whilst we visit the nearby replicas of a Viking longhouse and a longship. There are about 60 known locations of Viking longhouse remains on Unst, which apparently represents the largest concentration of Viking ruins in the world. Viking families lived in the central hall of the longhouse, which also housed the fire. Rooms were partially set off. One end of the Viking longhouse might be used as a barn to keep cattle and horses in the winter, as well as storage for crops and tools. The other end could be set up as a workroom for artisanal crafts or for the family's loom. And just outside the house stands the Skidbladnir, a 24.3 meters long replica of a Viking longship. She was originally built in Sweden with a plan to sail her across the Atlantic Ocean to America, like the Vikings did. But alas, as many Viking ships before, she only made it as far as Shetland before the project had to be abandoned and the crew rescued. On we go on the road, along the shore, and how unbelievably lucky are we. We spot our first sea otter on Shetland having lunch. A ringed plover scours the sandy beach. A grey seal pops up. And then, just minutes later, the black fins of two orcas break the water surface of the headland in the distance. I curse for having forgotten my binoculars on Polaris. In the Heritage Centre, we learned that there is something very special to see on the island. In the quest of this last highlight of our visit on Unst, we have to find a very special spot. This moon-like patch of desert is home to some very special plants, and one in particular, Edmondston's chickweed, is known to only grow in this exact location and nowhere else in the world. Unfortunately, we are already late in the flower season, and so we only find the decayed stems of the plant. So, to show you how it should look, Catherine has prepared an augmented reality visualization for you. Geologically, the eastern part of the island boasts a rare outcrop of rocks from the oceanic crust and from the upper mantle of the earth, usually some 5 to 10 kilometers below the surface. We are not known as fanatic botanists, Catherine and I, but we simply could not walk past this natural wonder. As small in size it is, as extraordinary is its story. A new day and a new adventure. From the far north to the far south of Shetland, the next day we visit Jarlshof, a historic settlement and Sumburgh lighthouse on mainland Shetland's southernmost headland. Jarlshof is a historic site where human settlements spanning 4,000 years can be seen in one place. Discoveries made here include oval-shaped Bronze Age houses, an Iron Age brock and wheel houses.
But if you look at the way the interior's been designed, it's easy to see how this type of building got its name. The different compartments are built like the spokes of a wheel, with the central living area around the hearth.
Norse longhouses.
One large farm and a few houses. These were built, rebuilt, and added to by at least 12 generations of farmers. The new settlers imported their building style from home, Norse longhouses. But they had to make some adaptations to suit their new environment. Scandinavian houses were traditionally built of wood, but wood was scarce on Shetland. So the settlers had to use the materials available: stone for walls, turf for insulation, and heather, turf and grass for roofing.
A medieval farmstead and a laird's house dating from the 1500s. All on this relatively small site, one built on top of another. We spent nearly 3 hours on a walk through history and listened to the excellent audio guide available in the visitor centre.
About them, enter 208 or press the green button to continue.
Close.
We were lucky to be early at Jarlshof. We just finished our tour when the first cruise ship day trippers invade the site. So on we go on our walk along this beautiful shoreline towards Sumburgh Head and its iconic lighthouse. As we walk up the steep ascent to the lighthouse, we are overwhelmed by the sound of the razorbills, fulmars and puffins breeding in the cliffs. From high above, we spot a huge grey seal swimming in the sea below, and in the far distance we can just about see our next sailing destination to the south, Fair Isle. Sumburgh Lighthouse was built in 1821 by, yes, who else than by Robert of the famous lighthouse builders dynasty Stevenson. We have talked a lot about lighthouses in earlier episodes, so this time let's talk about the men and women who ensured the operation of these beacons of safety year in and out, by night and day, in fog and in storms. Today, all British lighthouses are operated and monitored automatically. But in the olden days, lighthouse keepers were posted for weeks on end in the remotest, harshest and most dangerous places around the coast. In less remote places like Sumburgh, the lighthouse keepers lived with their families. The job of a lighthouse keeper was not for everybody. They had to cope with isolation, loneliness and exposure to the terrifying power of nature. Their primary duty was to keep watch during the night to ensure that the light flashed correctly to its character and to keep a fog watch 24/7 so that they could operate the fog signal in the event of poor visibility. They had to be self-sufficient jacks of all trades and a good company to their fellow lightkeepers on the same rota. A lightkeeper will not make a fortune, but he will be at peace with himself and the world, as an advertisement of the Northern Lighthouse Board in the 1960s said. Wow, this was a lot of information, wasn't it? It's late in the evening here in the editing corner. Thanks for hanging on until now. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to our channel, give us a like, share and leave a comment below. It means a lot to us. Join us next time when we sail on to one of Catherine's new favourite places, Fair Isle.